right, you're wrong. Don't let them. I'm your host, Delty Bobbins. Thanks for stopping again, and thank you again to the 5 and 10s, a great band out of Toronto. That introductory track was called Do What You Do. If you Google on YouTube the 5 and 10s Summer Concert Band Series, you'll hear that track number 1, and it's a good series of songs. Just listen to it anyway. Hey, thanks, guys. What can I do? And that's planting seeds. Anyway, one of the motivations for this podcast and the book is a phrase that I've always loved. It's sweep in front of your own door and the whole world will be clean. We all have heard the phrase, you are what you eat, but I think we also are what we believe and what we give our attention to. Calling out harmful behavior can feel risky. You might get flipped off or dismissed or worse. Some people participate indirectly instead of stepping in personally. We might call the police about an annoying neighbor, but we avoid speaking to them ourselves because direct involvement takes courage. Now, I'm not advocating confronting with fists raised and tempers flaring. I mean, take a breath, praying first, and approaching with compassion. Yes, sometimes you'll get flipped off still, but you might also plant a seed, one that grows. So this book exists because the world needs more of us planting seeds. Having said that, I like to always start out the podcast with a prayer. It's by Peggy Hall from thehealthyamerican.org. It says, God, I long that people might hear the truth. Give me assistance in reaching others. With my heart uplifted for grace and wisdom, guide me to share my views with fullness of truth, clarity of thought, proper expressions, fervency, and conviction, guided by your wisdom and light. Keep me conscious of my faults and flaws. Open my heart to hear the sorrows of others, and shine your light of comfort and peace, so that no soul may be lost to your love. Strengthen me by your Spirit. Stand between me and all strife, so I may speak fully and freely, and do this work that you have called me to do. So anyway, back to, standing up for bad behavior continuing to happen, and don't let them get away with it. That does place us in danger to one degree or another when we stand up, but we place our children and grandchildren even in greater danger when we don't speak out. So what can you do? Well, never underestimate the power of committed people to change the world, or one person. It's the only thing that ever has. So start there. Be one of the committed. Because when science is bought and sold, when peer reviews are tools of influence that are also bought and sold, and when trillions of dollars of manipulative narratives are out there, the only antidote is to be awake, aware, active, and having people willing to speak the truth. So at this point, hopefully you are a critical thinker, which unfortunately has been replaced with conspiracy theorists, but most people now see that we conspiracy theorists / critical thinkers have been right. So we don't want to be right. We don't even need an apology, but go find the conspiracy friend or family that you kicked to the street. They don't need the apologies, like I said, but they'll help you navigate. There's a great video on YouTube. It's called Here's to the Crazy Ones. It's about a minute long. It'll also further that message about how the rebels and people who speak out are the ones that cause change in the world. Now, nobody's better than anyone else, but it does take courage to do that. So again, I'm right, you're wrong is not that I'm right and you're wrong. The right way is the loving way. The wrong way is the absence of love or fear. So there's a few ideas that reinforce that. And it's a quote. It says, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Another one, in the absence of love and belonging, there's always suffering. Experts say that by the age of 10, all of us human beings, regardless of our upbringings, the human heart, created in the image and likeness of God, knows the difference between right and wrong. Even nature demonstrates this ideal, from the golden mean in plants to the principles of feng shui in your home. There are always exceptions, but even with those exceptions, there's a loving way and a loveless way to act. Having said that, we've all joked that drivers going slower than us are idiots, and those that are going faster than us are maniacs. So it's not about being self-righteous, it's about the truth and love and what's right. God is truth and God is love. When we choose behavior outside of that, we act like jerks. But I still believe in the goodness within every human heart. So this podcast and the book on Amazon is a long-delayed call to action. This book sat in my mind and on my desk for over 5 years because I'm not a writer. But a series of experience finally pushed me to write it. The first happened at a major hospital while visiting my sister. A young couple was walking down a wide hallway with a little girl. Maybe she was 3 years old. She was skipping sweetly and singing. Without warning, the man hit her really hard on the lower back. She didn't even cry. Her face went flat, and so did the mother's. Everyone around us, doctors, nurses, visitors, we froze. None of us did a thing. We rationalized confronting him might make it worse at home, or the police would need a witness firsthand. The system doesn't protect children, we know, unfortunately. And those reasons were ones that held us back. We did nothing. I regret that deeply. And I vowed the next time I saw injustice, especially involving children, I would speak up. So I think we're here to plant seeds. Healing is not the best version of ourselves, by the way. Healing is letting the worst version of yourself be loved. Anyway, so months later, in a crowded grocery store parking lot, on a sweltering summer day, I saw 2 young children that were left in the car with the windows barely cracked open. The mother walked away really quickly, dressed really well, driving a Mercedes with a license plate that said Children's Miracle Network, of all things. Another woman said that was walking by, she said, all we can do is pray for her. And I said, yeah, but we have to act on this. So I stood there thinking. When the mother returned, I calmly said, you know, you might think this is none of my business, but it's hot and this is child endangerment. And someone more than that could have taken your children. She snapped back at me, yeah, it's none of your effing business. And she drove away. And I stood there crying. She then circled back in tears and said to me, you're right. I wasn't thinking. I never do that. I shouldn't have done that. Whether her remorse was pure fear-based, I still believe it mattered. A seed was planted. So to ignore evil is to become accomplice to it, said Martin Luther King Jr. So here's compassion in action, just another example of many. But this story is in the same vein. A few years ago, I was driving through a busy intersection past a shopping strip where something caught my eye. An older, very thin, gray-haired man was sitting on the curb at the edge of a shopping strip. A police cruiser had just pulled up with flashing lights, and the energy of intimidation radiated from it. I felt compelled to act, but by the time I managed to turn around and come back to the spot a couple blocks later, the old man was hobbling across the street in tears. I pulled over. I ran to him and hugged him. He said that the police officer bullied him and treated him with such disrespect. We cried together. We prayed together. I made sure he had a plan for the day with a local shelter, although I knew they often kick people out during the daylight hours. I gave him $20 to close the moment with some small comfort. He told me he was just tired and hot and hurting, and no one was bothered. He was just resting. Now, I don't say that to flatter myself. I'm just telling you the story. So then I turned my attention to the police officer. The old me would have come swinging, dukes up, ready to fight. But this time, I focused. I held the anger in my mind, remembering all anger is sadness times 100. But I centered myself in love instead. And I pulled up to the police officer. I rolled down my window, and I spoke with calm, prayerful intention. And I looked him right in the eye. I said, you know, I witnessed what happened. And I read that the average American is just 3 paychecks away from being homeless. If you lost your job 3 paychecks from now without savings, you could be in that same spot. That old man, that's a human heart. Perhaps you can consider showing a little more compassion in moments like this. At first, that police officer puffed up like he was going to step out of the car and confront me. But as my energy stayed rooted in prayer, peace, and compassion, his puffiness softened. He looked down and sank into his seat. And he put his head down. And then he looked back at me with the tear in his eye. He nodded and said, "You're right." I don't share this story for ego or nor recognition. Love is what's right. This moment reminded me, and can remind all of us, that when we focus on God's love flowing through us, even the hardest hearts can be touched. We are all vehicles of love, and part of that is holding each other accountable, not letting each other get away with stuff, holding each other accountable, but always from a place of compassion. So don't let them get away with what you know in your heart is wrong. Always remember that. So every single behavior in life comes from the energy of love or the energy of fear. Understanding which one of these is driving your daily habits is the key to changing your life. So why now? Why did I write this book and start this podcast now? I guess I come back to where my ex used to say, "Take off your cape. You're not here to save the world." My response was in the starfish parable. You might look that up if you don't know it already. Briefly, it's a little boy on a beach, and he's at tide. He's running and throwing back all the starfish into the surf. An old man steps up and says, "What the heck are you doing?" And the little boy said, I'm trying to save these starfish." And he said, "You know, you're never going to save them all." But he paused and looked at the man and looked at the starfish in his hand. He said, "But I'm going to save this one." And he kept going on his task. So here I was into my retirement, 5 years out of a painful divorce, asking, what do I want to be when I grow up? And through some energy work and spiritual healing and nudges I couldn't ignore, I was guided to write this book and do this podcast, not for fame or money, but out of compassion for the human heart. I'm a Pisces, triple Pisces with Cancer, Moon, Scorpio in the mix, born in the year of the pig. So yeah, I'm a basket case, but an intuitive, empathic one. There's so much anger in the world, but you know, anger is only sadness multiplied times 100 or more. I'm nothing special. There are many empathetic souls. I've always been a straight shooter, and I felt that we needed to call each other out. If we don't call things out, then what are they? They're lies, either directly or by omission. And that breaks down this way. 3 things. Either you call it like it is, tell the truth plain and simple, or call it what it's not, which would be labeled a lie, or call it nothing at all, which is worse. That's a lie by omission, staying silent when the truth matters. What's the point here? Honesty with compassion is everything. If we skirt it, avoid it, let them, or sugarcoat things too much, we only multiply the confusion and hurt. There's a great song by Josh Wilson called "I Refuse." It's mostly saying a prayer in action. Give a listen to it on YouTube. Some other quotes that kind of bring this home is Martin Luther King Jr., "If you want peace, work for justice. Without justice, there can be no peace. He who passively accepts evil and bad behavior is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetrate it." Think about that. You must always be willing to truly consider evidence that contradicts your beliefs and admit that the possibility, I might be wrong. You might be wrong. Intelligence isn't knowing everything. It's the ability to challenge everything that you know. Thank you for listening. God bless. See you in the next episode.